before we start as well, for those who were able to make it on Saturday, you've been there for that really amazing session on editing, which is now available as an upload for you to watch. It was really a real eye-opener in terms of the technical process around editing in Screenlife. I think it's really informative about just about how much artifice is involved in making something look realistic on Screenlife, and the amount of how much of the final image, how much the final product comes in that editing process, both before and in post. So I encourage you all to watch that if you haven't had a chance yet. It's really informative and dovetails really well with the session that we just had with Sean when he was talking about story first. The two things are really important as they work together. So as a little plug for what we've got, Karen sent out that link this afternoon with the invite for tonight. Hopefully everybody will get a chance to, if they haven't caught up with it already, catch up with it during the week. Nick, what do you got for us tonight?
Hello, bear with me 1 second, I'll just screen share. Can you see that all right? Perfect, brilliant. Hello everyone, so today, as we build our proof of concept and develop our ideas further, it's important to do a deep dive into the ways we can show our characters' digital world and the real world around them in Screenlife. This is all about assisting your story and enhancing it by the visual world we surround our protagonists in. Some of the questions you may have been asking yourselves recently might be, how do we make our interfaces look like something our characters would realistically use day to day? What apps can I use to enhance our characters' backstory and develop who they are visually? How can each aspect define our story and the characters within it just from what we show? What might our character's computer or mobile phone screen look like, and how does it differ from maybe your own? So today, that's what I thought we'd do a deep dive, and hopefully you'll walk away with some inspiration for your own projects. I'll be using mostly Mac OS today rather than PC or iPhone, but you can imagine how these ideas can easily be transferred to other UXs or interfaces. And the ideas remain applicable across them all. If you're stuck on interface ideas, this might be your week. So I've tried to tell a story here just with one frame or interface, a whole character's backstory, inner turmoil, troubles, highs, lows, loves and loathes. It's a bit cluttered compared to maybe a more finished interface for a film, but let's take it for what it can show. Just take a quick glimpse if you can here and guess who this person might be. What do they look like? Their age, location, personality type, likes, dislikes, job or past job. So take a moment, what do you think their story might be? I'll just hold it for a moment.
It's not a wheelchair salesman, no.
That would have been better. Brilliant.
He's in it. He served in the Iraq War and was injured and has had his legs blown off, and he's about my age.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, we'll go for it, but that's pretty spot on there. Now, compare that interface to this one. Now, I must say, this does look like a very typical page or a typical perspective of gender roles in the internet or interests without much nuance, I'd say. This is just to show a completely different look, a different feel and person behind the screen. As you can see, this shift helps define our tone too, just in the same way as a color palette in cinematography or production design does. So what does this kind of character look like in your mind? Again, I'll let you take a moment, but you probably already guessed.
It's a way I come up with It reminds me of Single White Female.
Oh yeah.
This is somebody who is looking at all these different things to make herself that other person.
Pretty spot on there again, Chris. I guess I've done my job in some way then. Brilliant. So side by side, you can see how they feel tonally very different, a completely different experience for the audience. Let's return back to this frame and break it down ever so slightly. So we've got a simple Union Jack. And if it allows me to, I'm just going to try this because I've never tried it before. Hopefully this will help. As you can see, so direct your eyes around here. This isn't going to work very well. But you've got, you know, war games and battlegrounds, a fitness app. And then on the right hand side, left hand side here, you've got 99 missed emails. I'm not going to do this. It's not going to work. Screenlife. But as you can see, just through that bottom dock, we've already learned an awful lot.
It's working fine, Nick. That was working.
It's working okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God. It's good. Then, as you can see here on the left-hand side, the desktop is cluttered. You know, it's lots of unorganized files, some folders reading pictures of us. Who is us? Is this a present relationship or maybe one that's gone awry? Folders reading China 2015, DNA tests for the court and a funeral arrangement. This is the feel of a character that is maybe messy and less organized. That immediately tells you something. Then you've got your text on your, not much point in me doing that. Text on the left, right, as you can see, a mother who he clearly cares for, people worried about him, people who he owes money to, a daughter to pick up from a partner, which we know just from the heart symbols next to her name, juxtaposed with a salacious chat line. This is one layer, and this is already telling the audience an awful lot. They've perceived it and absorbed it. And if we allow them time to focus on it, or focus it with a zoom or mouse, we can really focus in on those details. And a mixtape, you know, labeled Heartbreak, a selection of songs that hint at maybe a generation or even a mood that the character is in. Then another layer, picture reading Dad, 1941, newscasts of drone warfare, you know, that he's reading, an Audible book relating to politics in the early 2000s, emails from Forces Reunited, a note section with traditional Chinese writing, showing potentially a multilingual person, and a Google search, who do I find out who my real father is, with an Ancestry.com application next to it. Hopefully now we're seeing a bit more of the story evolving. Then we've got a weather report on the right-hand side, an establishment of location, BBC iPlayer, a philosophical, psychological-based documentary, a VPN, a character clearly fearful and conscious of privacy, and a screen time of 14 hours a day spent by the computer. Finally, of course, as Nick's mentioned, a search for a new wheelchair online. Then, for some reason, Rick Astley. So, final image. So there, hopefully you get the gist. An ex-soldier, wheelchair bound, wanting to understand his true bloodline. He's in a kind of a tricky money situation, and his love life is clearly on a knife's edge, or maybe it's already ended. There's a sense of a wider story with no dialogue at all, and we understand their whole world within a frame. Now, if we quickly flash back to this and go through that interface, what could we see here? A creative design, a love of expression, lots of messages on a variety of social media apps, a social butterfly, a love for photography and doctoring images to suit the character's means. Here we can see what they've been searching: how to be famous, how to start a YouTube channel, clear vanity and yearning for the limelight. A completely different mixtape, confident and upbeat. We've got 1,000 tabs open, completely different feel, with sponsored ads on skincare, searches on Siri with makeup tutorials. The character is shopping online too. What do their purchases say about them? But here we can see a camera on the left-hand side being covered by a hand. Searches to help prevent acne and side-by-side comparisons to a well-known icon to model herself on. Now we can see a hidden facade and insecurity trying to be painted over. Then obviously here we've got her spending of time, which is mostly Snapchat, Messenger and Google. Culminating in this final image, another story and world shown in Screenlife. We feel like we're inside their mind. We can clearly see it. We can see it all. We understand and empathize with them. And we all know the truth or a version of it because we're inside their mind. Alone through comparing screen time, we learn so much, whether we as artists decide to show this or use it as ammunition, maybe as writers, as an experiment to understand our characters. Through this, we can understand them deeply. This may be a great exercise to work out how long does your characters spend on their devices each day? How long do they spend on each app? We can then understand their world and portray them accurately on screen. To write a Screenlife film, even to edit, we must understand the character's mind, I suppose, the world and how they externalize it. But equally, leaving some room for the audience to make up the difference and imagine their world through how we influence information. So that they feel engaged, hopefully, this way, and it can trigger an interactive part of the brain. These visuals can really trigger those serotonin highs and tension because we know these interfaces. We know the playground the characters are sitting within. So we know the dangers, limitations, and intrigue, playing on expectation versus reality and dramatic irony and things like that. Now, a lovely picture of Mark Zuckerberg. Let's consider the characters' interests and the data collected on them through their use of devices. Just by showing search history and suggested posts, favorite contacts in your phone book, watch laters on YouTube, previous searches on Google, Twitter, Instagram, we once again learn about their past before they fade in on the script, filling in the missing details. We feel like we're peering in on their life this way. Now, what Joanne beautifully refers to as digital dust or digital footprint, what do the algorithms online for your character look like? The sponsored ads, dodgy emails, all led by things that they input online. Many of you will probably have seen The Social Dilemma, essentially exploring what the footprint looks like and leads to as a consequence really adds to the world of the character and story. And this can also help develop the wider world of how the world looks like around the character, what is being pushed in front of them and driven by them in the state of the globe where your narrative is placed. Here's an exercise to try. What would Facebook and other data holders believe your character's interests are? So here are a list of Facebook, lists of interests Facebook thinks I like, although I think it believes I'm a cat person, but I'm more of a dog person, but you get the idea. This way you can really hone your digital persona of your protagonist. Maybe do this for your entire ensemble cast, maybe even ones that we don't see their screens of. It's almost like the extroversion, introversion graph or character backstory A4 we often explore as writers, but focused on Screenlife even more so. Let's take a clip from a profile. I actually don't think I've got share sound on, so I might have to stop sharing and reshare. But I'm sure many of you will have watched this online, but I'm just going to reshare with sound. So to give you a bit of context, she's a journalist trying to infiltrate the heart of ISIS by building a relationship with an ISIS soldier or fighter. And pay attention to, if you can, what is around the live action? What is her interface look like?
Easy to use. Do you like guns? I'll give you plenty. Starting with this lovely Kalashnikov.
Kalash. Kalash.
Kalash. Kalash.
Kalash.
Ne.
Ne.
Kov.
Ko. Kalashnikov.
Kalashnikov. When are you going to come to Al Sham?
Lou.
Amy, I'm sorry. I'm running out of disk space. Just give me a minute. Just hang on.
Quick. Lou, how do I respond to the Syria question?
Okay, look. You can't travel alone as a respectable woman. So you should say that you need to be accompanied by a man. Someone like your cousin.
Amy, you're doing just great, but you need to get to the topic and figure out how they recruit the girls. We
Okay.
need to wrap up this investigation as soon as possible for your own safety.
Yeah, look, Amy, you just got to be careful. Look, the risk to blow cover is huge. They've got a giant IT
Okay.
department. They've got some powerful hackers from
Okay.
all over the world.
Okay,
These
sure.
guys are no joke,
Okay, he's calling. Can you stay there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
The hijab, it's fine.
That's great. It's fine. Just cover your ear a bit. That's fine. Yeah, looks good.
So there, you're getting a real sense of so many different things here. So, you know, you've got things in the backgrounds like a note, so screenshots. And let's take a look at the next screen. What does this say about who she is? Who might she be trying to portray herself as? And this dual personality is shown just through two windows here. You know, we've got the Melody Nelson persona here, and then her real persona with lots more people versus just with Bilal here. And then just even a small detail, such as the profiles used here. You know, the lion has so many semiotics and kind of has such a feel to it and an atmosphere of, you know, it's quite scary, but as you learn to understand this character, it changes. There's almost a character arc of understanding what that lion looks like on screen. It's very interesting when we get to see the feature. And then her Snow White persona, which she has as her profile, trying to appear innocent for the person she's investigating. So immediately, these just two things create an entirely different world and show so many things about who she is and who he is. So world building, it doesn't have to be that the world that your characters are set in is the real one we live in now, but of course it can be. But these are just, you know, some random ideas. You could be going really far out. These are some crazy examples, but not impossible if you want to place your story in a more fantastical setting. I don't know. Could it look something like this, or this, or this, or more like that? So you get a sense that you can really change the surrounding of the world and you can change the interfaces with it to have a completely different Screenlife film. Well, what is the state of the world look like? Is there discord, upheaval, rioting, a dystopian landscape? Or is it too good to be true, almost cultish, no conflict, idyllic, almost fearfully perfect, a utopia? So how do you show that? Once again, you could use sponsored ads, you know, that can show something about the world. The social media posts, the news that the character sees, videos on YouTube, ads, as I've said, anything visual, you can really establish so many things here. And then who do they surround the world in their world, in their inner circle and outer circle? So what are the people around your protagonist like? What does this show about their social status? I'm not a fan of the term, but you understand what I mean. Where did they attend, you know, education? Do they have lots of friends abroad? Maybe they've never met. Who's commenting? How many people? What are the follower numbers, likes, posts, amount of messages? How many are read versus unread? Is that high or low number? Does this change over the course of the film? Do you have people unfriending her or sending friend requests? You know, are these numbers of followers real or are they bots? You know, if your character's got a facade there, maybe they're buying followers or, pardon me, buying friends. You can even establish who your character's family is by just Facebook alone or even the contact book very easily, so you understand that world. This is just another way to show that. So that's everything. Hopefully you've got some ideas maybe there that you might not have considered, or and you can implement some different thoughts into how you develop your character's world. Thank you very much.
On a beautiful day, it's really to go there about 5 o'clock or with a dog, because it's much quieter. Yeah. And the Waterloo side of things, you go to the
Somebody should be on mute. It's not on mute.
I think it's more entertaining if they're not, though, to be fair.
I think it's dog.
Oh, brilliant. Screenlife.
Now you know about the dog. All right, very good. Thank you for that, Nick. Any thoughts, questions for Nick?
Yeah, Nick, you had some examples of screen time there. Was that meticulously setting yourself up as your pseudonym and thinking it, or did you edit it? Did you bit of Photoshop going on?
I did a little bit of editing, but some of it was based on like weeks ago when I'd randomly used Snapchat for an hour. I tracked it back and then just so I've just tried to play with that. But yeah, some of that's me, and then some of it's just random stuff that I photoshopped.
I mean, I'm guessing it wouldn't be difficult to knock up a template, a Photoshop template that we could all, draw off. I'm not volunteering, by the way, but
Thanks, Colin. Cheers,
no worries.
I've just done one for Twitter, and it's been a nightmare, but it's fun. It's a bit of fun. Photoshop's been great. Yeah.
I'd just like to say something, Nick. That was a great presentation, and it was really thought provoking. I thought there was loads in there, where it was, as always, like really spot on. So I appreciate that. I loved the way that you chose a couple of well let's just go on the semiotics. This is a conversation we had the other day, wasn't it, about how important it is for film, a traditional film, and actually making that work in these settings, and them two examples that you used, I just thought a classic for teaching, the Snow White v the Lion, and it just shows the impact and the how powerful it can be by setting up these templates and stuff. I thought it was really good. It was brilliant, Nick. Thank you so much for doing that.
No worries. I was a bit worried about the Rickrolling bit, but I thought it'd be worth it putting Rick Astley.
I thought you would have been more worried about the Viagra.
Oh, no, that was your idea. Don't give me that.
That was brilliant, Nick. It was really well put together. Thank you.
It's just Nick demonstrating he can rise to any occasion at these presentations.
A lot of those emails were mine. All those junk emails had just gone through my junk, and it was like, Bitcoin, Viagra for you.
Still recording, by the way.
Oh, no worries. I've made sure.
Well, those your spam messages can be very interesting. I started creating a short story out of one, which was about a supposed FBI agent investigation in Nigeria. And I thought, well, they're not going to sue me for copyright because they're scammers. So I was having to rummage through it and created a story out of it.
That's a great
idea. Use it for inspiration.
Yeah, and actually I think it's a really good idea to share these things, whether it be on the WhatsApp or on that website. And as when we come to the end of this, I would hope that everybody becomes a part of that Screenlife site and continues to post ideas and blogs and vlogs and the likes, because actually that's a really interesting idea, isn't it? I mean, I was doing a piece of work with Maddie and Ryan a couple of months ago, and it was like, let's set up the email now for one of their characters, Jennifer, and let's have a look. Let's do some searches on behalf of Jennifer and see what happens, how that spam email account fills up. And it's a very, very interesting way of doing things. It's because actually the story's being written for you. The algorithms are telling us who the character is. Nick's got a question.
That's what I was going to do. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I think from that, really, my big question is, when is there too much information, and how do we choose to present all of those things? I mean, and also there's something about the user experience as well, is that, do we think that, like, consuming this stuff, people pause and root around and look on the screen and then stop and play? And do we factor that in or not? And I think the saturation and the level of information conveyed in a frame really, for me, is my question, because it can be too much. I mean, that was a great example, but as an example, it was too much information, and it kind of drive you crazy trying to follow anything.
Yeah, that's why I broke it down, because I was going, this, I have to convey it in one frame to go.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. I think it's, if you could put that entire frame over a duration of 5 minutes, just slowly implement those ideas, like the messages wouldn't all come through at once, like in all those different aspects. You know, for instance, they load up the computer, you see the desktop, that's established, you don't have to worry about that. I think if you do it incrementally, that works. But then sometimes I guess the chaos says something. But I agree, that's too much for me as well.
It's very interesting, yeah, because sometimes it's good to overload a little bit, I guess, but it's all about it's as I say again, it's just establishing or understanding that language and the parameters of that language and how you can use it.
Yeah, I think going back to the example of Melody and Bilal, and again, it shows you the different way of different ways of directing. And this is a conversation Nick and I had the other day for a while. You know, if you think about searching and the direction in that to the direction in profile, and I'm really excited for you to be able to watch it quite soon. But the style of direction is completely different. So Nick's example there just had Bilal and Melody, and that's all you could see. And then when the call goes down, then is it Amy? Is her name Amy? Is it Amy Whitaker, the journalist? Her desktop pops up, and there's just that difference in. And you're absolutely right, Nick, about having information overload, because on that example on its own, there was just enough information for you to be able to work it out. Because actually that scene itself came back from memory, and just actually watching the film and picking up on these really important bits of information, and everything else seemed to just like, wash away with it. But they were things that we were left with from watching, the profile experience, if you like.
I think profile is probably the best combination of the live action and the interface stuff for me. I think it's got that, it just combines those two elements. It's not two talking heads, but the dialogue is so gripping, and the story is so, not to blow Timur's trumpet too much, but I think that's when you can see like a master director going, that's what I want to do. And
what was the one that we just showed an example of?
That was profile.
That was profile, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And actually it's a must for you and what you're doing, because your story actually through, just the way that your story has progressed, I think that is an absolute must. You should watch it just on them little ways that he's managed to subtly, them subtle movements of from one character to another. It's dead important. I'll see if I can get you a link to it. I'll see if we can, because I think it's just been sold, so I don't know whether we can still do an online showing of it. But I'll try and get it. It's dead important that you see it, because again, I think Nick's absolutely right. There's a distinct difference between the direction, and there's another thing that I think's dead important to consider here, and that is the importance of the format, and how, again, there are no rules. However, it appears to me, my experience of it is that it's much more immersive when you stay within the boundaries of that one screen. With search, and you sort of go off into different screens, so whether it be the helicopter, or whether it be the news, or whether it be setting up the cameras in the kitchen, it's a very different feel to just that staying in her screen. It gives you a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be interesting to see if the profile interfaces will change, because obviously it's updated, but even the nostalgia of how that operating system looks triggers something. I think that's interesting. Backtracking to what that old, was it Catalina or something? I can't remember what the old Mac system was. But But I think it's interesting seeing different people. Like, I think with the entire interface aspect, if you try that dogma, sometimes your skepticism of it brings something. Like I think I've said to you, John, a few years ago, I said to myself, and I said it in I did a speech at King's, and I said, I'm never going to shoot on an iPhone. And how you can change by being skeptical, you can create. So I think it's a really interesting thing to try, even if you're skeptical about it.
Mm. Yeah.
A good example of the sort of things you're talking about, Nick, is the little film that we were introduced to on Saturday, Noah. People haven't had a chance to see. It's a little Screenlife film, lasts about 17 minutes. It's a very simple story. It's about a guy who manages to get himself chucked by his girlfriend by being suspicious of her, and he hacks into a Facebook account and chucks himself basically by changing a relationship status. But all you've got in that, you've got very little. You do see some acting on a sort of FaceTime, but most of it is following the cursor round the desktop and finding out everything about him from what's on the desktop, and the whole world, his whole world and his whole personality is contained on that. And it's just a kind of lovely little short story. Most of it is setting up the desktop. There's really not. It's a piece of filmmaking. There's not much more to it than that.
It's a great. I love that short.
I'll find the link for you here, and I'll just stick it back.
Sorry, I was just going to quickly jump in. Just you saying about that, Nick and Martin. I was just thinking then, and I was just remembering Gulf War One. The Marines, when they were on the front line before it was stopped, were using their mobile phones, video chatting to family while there were explosions going off, bullets flying around, and they were actually holding their phones up, and the families could see what was going on. And I thought that would be quite an interesting one.
Absolutely. Right, go on, Andrew.
So I guess it's about pace, because the only examples of Screenlife that I've seen so far have been Unfriended, Searching, and the mobile one, the relationship one, the Russian one, and I've seen Noah as well, and all of them do have quite a frenetic pace to them because of the nature of the interface to some extent, and obviously Sean alluded to it with the Snapchat audience, because that's a particular target audience. But I'm just wondering, maybe there's an example of it in Profile that I haven't seen, where there's just a slower pace and a moment for reflection within performances. Are there examples of that, or is it always a sense of urgency where we need to see something else directing our attention, or, is the scope for us to just breathe a bit,
I think there's a beautiful, it feels beautiful when you watch it in Profile, where she just lights a cigarette and we just watch her for a second, and the pace changes for a moment and the audience catches up. There might be things happening a little bit on the computer, but ultimately it's just her. I think there is those moments, but I think you're right. I think Profile's a little bit more gradual. It earns its pace. I think it earns the payoff at the end because the pace is slower, rather than going, it feels real time and then it flashes the structure of its genius. But yeah, I think that's a good example. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. Joanne, is there any other ones that? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry, John.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but again, I think you're right, Nick. That piece there where she does that, that is really nice. No, that's it. I mean, I'm just trying to. I don't know. I think in terms of all stories, again, because there are times, aren't there, where you do just sit and look at your screen. Where I'm just thinking about the emails I've wrote today or the conversations I've had today, and just come back and just, I think you have to keep it as real as possible without falling asleep with it, you know. And again, thinking about your story and how your story is going to work, Andy, I think yours is going to be again a completely new experience, because the whole movement of time and, you know, the lapse of memory and things like that's going to be really, really interesting to see how these proof of concepts come together, because there's some real great opportunities here to make some amazing work and set the bar for that, you know, because again, being at the forefront of it, you've got, you know, there's only a handful of films that have been made before you, so, you know, it's an opportunity to do something quite different and build upon the tradition, but in a little bit of a different sense.
I think the only other example, just before I forget, is Unfriended Dark Web's opening scene. Has a beautiful slow progression into the story. It's a little bit more gradual rather than going straight into it. I think that's a good example as well. I mean,
I was thinking of that as well.
Yeah, and is Unfriended Dark Web where they've, I feel like one of the moments is the, you know, the desktop sleep mode where it has the beautiful colours, like a Terrence Malick moment in Screenlife. It feels very, very surreal, but something so familiar. And you start to see the beauty in the mundane in a Screenlife film through just that screen thing we've all seen. So that's another good example. That might have been in Searching, that can't remember. But yeah, that's another example. Any others? Brill. Have we got breakout rooms today?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to head for next. Just before you finish it off, Nick. For those of us who are not experts on Photoshop and experts on editing, what's the best way what's the easiest way for people to start doing that sort of work of building a character's profile like that?
I did all of that in Keynote for speed, except one or two bits where I use Photoshop. So PowerPoint, I mean, it's basic and you can't export it, but say if you're wanting to just do a storyboard, or you want to create certain interfaces and then you want to green screen the background and then just chroma key those aspects. I mean, what I use is the screenshot tool on Mac. If you have Windows Selector, it doesn't have any of the background behind it, so you get those perfect curves of the windows. So I get that, I copy it into Keynote, I'll create text boxes to cover over the lettering, and then I'll import it. But I definitely recommend Photoshop because it is so much quicker if you're doing something for the actual film. And I've just invested in a drawing pad, as you could probably tell, that weren't working very well during the presentation, that'll make that getting rid of things much easier as well. So those are two things that are quite good to get.
All right, excellent stuff. Right. Well, shall we have some breakouts? How many people have we got, Karen?
30.
All right, well, 3 groups of 10. You got some homework for us, Joe? What do you want us to do now?
Well, I mean, I think we're all in very different places, aren't we, with the proof of concepts that we're doing. Ideally, what we should have done was we should have worked out who needs to be where at this point, because we've still got people writing scripts. We've got people who are starting to do the you know, the Photoshop stuff. I think I haven't got no homework tonight because everybody's so full on in their own piece of work that it's just, this breakout room for me would be you know, 20 minutes, half an hour to be able to talk about where we are and what support we need to get between here and the 20th of March with your proof of concepts.
Just a quick question. I don't know whether people on the course are classified as students in any way, because then there might be a way of getting Adobe and things like that for very little, with a student discount of some sort. I was just thinking about it then. Don't know what classification that would have.
I think that's a really good idea. One of the things that I was going to suggest, because there is a small resource attached to each person, and I did suggest this a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, to either get an editor or get a motion designer in to create a number of interfaces that we could share between us. You know, so who needs what? Let's get a list of what we need. I spoke to Maria at the weekend actually about some interface support. So if we've got a budget, then we can just employ someone to make what we need to be made.
Sounds good.
As well as get a license for the for Photoshop as well, because there was another thing as well that we were talking about the other day, which was the different screen capture tools. You know, the on a Mac it's just dead simple, isn't it? You know, Command Shift and number 5, and you'll be given a couple of options to be able to do whatever you want. But there's the Screenlife, on the Screenlife site you can use the Screenlife technology. Now, you know, just to do the click order thing, order it, it's free, and use that. A bit clunky, and still needs shaping, but it's still very good, and especially if you have an idea to do any interactive filming, because with the Screenlife click order recording equipment, it means that within the interface that you use, it's clickable. So if you're going to be downloading stuff from the web, from the internet, then you can click anywhere on your site. So if you download something that's got, you know, another clickable thing on it, you can do it while you're recording your screen. It's very, very useful. I think it's probably one of the best ones for doing stuff like that, because you can edit it quite quickly, and you can you know, click into from one website to another. So it's ideal for that. You can't do that with with your screen capture stuff on a Mac, just as an example, but Screenlife site you can. So I'd actually consider using that using the camera stuff from the site as well.
That links nicely to what Nick said about having so much information on the screen that an audience wants to pause it and explore. I think that's a really interesting thing. I've always thought it'd be great to do a history of the internet in Screenlife, and you can click different links and you can learn different things. Or if you wanted to create a character, if it's clickable, you could explore their entire profile. It'd be very difficult creating thousands of profiles, but might be the future.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to tell you to do with Psychomachy, yeah? It was a joke, but actually, I can see your brain starting to move now. Bet you do it.
Save that for the streaming release. But yeah, you can get Photoshop for as $9.99. I've just checked as well, so it's $9.99. You have to sign up for 12 months. That's outside of a student one, and then a student one's like £25 a month. As well. There's some options there, isn't there?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So should we go into breakout rooms then?
Right. Can we? When we're chatting in our breakout rooms, one of the things can we come back with then after half an hour is a shopping list of things that people need.
Okay.
We'll pull that together. So if Nick, Joe, and I are in different chat rooms this week, if we can manage to do that, we'll come back at the end and we'll pull the shopping list together, and we'll see what we've got. All right.
Okay. Great.
You doing them for half an hour then?
Yeah, half an hour. We'll come back at quarter to.
Okay, I'll just let it do automatically, and then I might have to move you, Joe, and Nick around. Just bear with me a sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
I'll give it a go.